My name's Jeffrey St Laurent. This is the Live Tuesday Call, and we're coming at you consistently every week. And I say that emphasizing the word consistent because today's topic is, of course, creating the discipline to remain consistent in our business. And I always like to say, to me, arguably, consistency is the number one ingredient in success in creating the results that we're looking to create. If we take away any other activities or elements of success, even if we're not good at something or we're not as good as we could be, if we're consistent at doing it, not only are we going to get better over time, but that's going to turn into a result. And whether it's the result we're exactly looking for or not, actually, I like to say it doesn't really matter because no matter what we're doing, we're getting some type of a result, whether it's favorable or not favorable, and at least we can pivot and work from there and have an intelligent direction based on where we're at. So before we get into that topic, just a few points. All these calls are recorded. I put them on my university on my website, sellingcoaching.com. So go to there, check out the university. Got a lot of great information there as I help coaches transition to a full-time business. Right at the top of my website, sellingcoaching.com, I've got a link to my private Facebook group. Great group of coaches over there. We're over 1,200 now, which is exciting, growing each and every week. Great chance and a platform for you to be able to speak your message and share what you're doing, whether you're doing it for a while or you're just beginning to articulate that. So I invite you to check that out. And then right on my homepage as well on sellingcoaching.com, I have the ultimate startup guide for new coaches. So that's a great audio and PDF resource for you as well. And before we get going, I also do one-on-one and group mentoring. So if you're in a position where you're really looking for some guidance and help with this, no matter what facet of the business as you look to transition to full-time, just go to the Work With Me tab on my website, scroll to the bottom. I got a great little form there, and that comes directly to me. And then we can just create a connection after that, create a relaxed conversation and kind of see where and what action is best appropriate for you. So today we're going to talk about, like I said, it's creating that discipline to remain consistent in our business. And like I said, consistency really is the number one factor that's going to allow us to transition to full-time. And before the call, that part of the advantages of calling in live, I got to talk to some of the people and kind of say, hey, what are you going through with these challenges, so forth and so on. And we heard a range of things in terms of just really staying focused on items, not getting distracted, got too many things going on, so we're maybe always in an overwhelmed state, and being accountable more for our marketing activities. So a lot of different aspects to it. So one of the first things I'm gonna talk about when it comes to what we're doing, and this is for anybody, whether you have a job currently and you're doing coaching outside of your job, or for whatever reason, you don't have a job and you have the ability to do your business. When I say full-time, meaning you have more time available to you. Doesn't mean you don't have other activities, but it's not like you have a job, etc. So you have more time available to you where you can focus on your coaching business. And honestly, in either situation, there's no advantage. Some people think like, oh, well, if I only didn't have to work my 8 hours of job, I'd have an advantage because, I come home and I'm tired, etc. I don't have as much time. But honestly, like even if you have a lot more time, sometimes that's not a good thing because there's too much time and it's like, well, what do I do? And then it's much easier to get distracted, and also if there's financial pressure as well. So no matter what situation you're in, let's just look at it like this. One of the things that I'm a real advocate of, and it's starting to create a discipline to do this, and you've heard me talk about this, some of my students on different calls, is starting to develop a routine of your schedule. And a lot of people go into entrepreneurship because, oh, I can create my own schedule, or I don't have to have a schedule, right? And so what I say here is that we've got to develop a routine. And I say a routine of our schedule because it involves more than just our business hours or just our business. It's really our whole life. And having a routine and knowing what we're doing each and every day is so vital. I just believe for us as humans, and there's a lot of people that function differently, and they don't like to, I don't like to be scheduled on different things, and there's some people that are the extreme opposite, I need to know, I need to have a schedule for everything. No matter where you're at, what I really recommend you start doing is taking a look at what is my routine for my day, and a routine is involving how I function best with different activities. And when I look at your routine, I look at different aspects. that go into the schedule. Things like, okay, yes, our business. So number one, if we got to look at our routine, we've got to take a look at where does my business fit in? And I would call those my office hours. So where are my office hours? And like I said, whether you're doing this full-time or part-time, whatever hours you have, you've got to be able to put time aside for your business. So you've got to have that time set aside. And then there's other components that are going to aid in your routine and aid in the discipline of it as well. And this comes from my health and fitness background where, I'm obviously a big advocate of exercise. I'm a big advocate of diet, not dieting per se, but like what is your diet, your nutrition. I'm not going to get into details with that today, but I'll say, if I'm not here to promote, oh, you got to go start working out or something, right? If you're not, yeah, of course, it's going to help you for a lot of different reasons. But to me, that's a big component of your ability to stay disciplined, because once you're exercising on a regular basis, you're going to start feeling better. Once you're eating better on a regular basis, you're going to start feeling better. You're going to be thinking clearer. And those are going to aid in your ability to stay focused and work better as well when it comes to your business and all of your interactions. That's a huge component of what we do here. And then, of course, there's family time. There's free time. And then there's whatever time that you have allocated for different activities. But what I'd urge you to do is to start to take a look at that routine, take a look at how I can schedule that so it becomes a routine. So if I can say that differently, it's like, how do I schedule it so it becomes a routine? So each and every day, you know what that routine is and it's scheduled. And not only is it scheduled, but the other components to it as well is that whoever the other people are in your world that you interact with, whether people that live at home, that come in and out of your house, that you have to go and work with, whether it's kids, spouses, friends, family, things like that, that your schedule is communicated to them and that it's cleared, if you will, in terms of boundaries and so forth and so on. And this is just setting you up for the foundation of having a scheduled routine that you can become disciplined on. And again, the more you follow this, and the more you make tweaks and the more you abide by it, in other words, you're going to start feeling better about yourself. And that's where the consistency starts to come in. I look at this as you start to have a routine that you follow, and there's that intention of it, so that you remain disciplined because it's like you have something that you know you're following. And even just by doing those activities over time, it's a discipline to have those. And I look at that like this is, consistency is just a byproduct of that routine. So it's like when we stay disciplined enough to follow that routine and we do that day in and day out, what happens is we are consistent, right? We don't have to like try and be consistent. Consistency just happens as a result of us following that routine and being disciplined around that. And of course, the more and more we follow that, of course, we're going to find things that work and find things that don't. But that's if you will, that's the framework that we've got to lay down before we talk into any other types of strategies. If we don't have that framework that we can work from, and that framework, I can also call those the boundaries. I like to see them as boundaries because if we have our work hours, if we know when we're supposed to work out, if we know when we're going to be hanging out with our spouse or we have family time, etc. And again, it's never perfect. There's always changes that come into play, obviously, right? But just like a job, I look at it like this: it's the perfect parallel to it. When you have a job, it's like, well, if you work from 9 to 5, those are your boundaries, and you honor those. And maybe you're a few minutes late, or you leave a few minutes early, or you work a few minutes late. But if you're working 9 to 5, like those are the hours. Like, you have a boundary set, and you follow those. If you don't follow those, you're not going to have a job for very long. So it doesn't have to be, and nor should it be, any different for our business. And I really, really want to stress that when people say like, oh, well, I've got this going on and now this is happening in my life, and I'm referring this meaning anything. It could be major things like moving, like breaking up with someone that you love, whether it's a divorce or just a relationship. It could be having a child going through a rough time, major things like that, or just my car broke down, or my bathroom sink leaked and it's all over. Just everyday stuff. But at the end of the day, you still got to get to work, right? If you've got that 9 to 5 job. So we've got to be able to treat those things the same way. And what I want to do is I want to stress just as much when it comes to the other components of our life, like exercise, family time, and things like that, just the same as a job, we must honor those as well. So in other words, if you've got time in the morning to exercise or in the evening after work, etc., and if someone, business-wise says, oh, can you meet at this time, and that's your, quote, exercise time, you've got to be able to set those boundaries and say, no, that doesn't work for me, but here's what does. That's so, so important. This all goes into cultivating that discipline to your schedule. And the more discipline you say to that schedule, again, the byproduct is consistency. And that happens over time. And we have to become true to that, because we have to recognize the value to us as a person in our individual well-being and our health of doing all these components in our world. And some people say, there's not enough time in the day to blah, blah, blah. You fill in the blank. Like, right, there's not enough time. Well, that's just a perspective. Well, the question is where is the time? Where do you put aside the time? When the time is put aside and it's scheduled and it's set aside, you know when it can be done. So even if it's not done yet, if it has a place in your schedule and it becomes a part of your routine, you don't have to worry about, oh man, I haven't gone to the gym yet this week. Oh man, I haven't done that, proposal yet this week. Or oh man, I haven't spent any time with my kids this week. You don't have to worry about that, because you know there's a time set aside to do that. And as long as you honor that time and follow that, and you're disciplined enough to stay there, then what happens is you get that stuff done. And that breeds into consistency, right? So now what happens is, when we talk about this, when we talk about some of the things that the people are saying, before we called in, I've got too many things going on. I've got so much going on, and there's not enough time in the day in my business hours to get this stuff done. What we've got to recognize is we've got to have that time. We can only accomplish so much, bottom line. And these are just some simple foundational things that you guys have heard before, but these are the things that we've got to bring into our business. Like over the last several weeks, as I've had more appointments, I've had a lot of people that I'm interacting with via Messenger, etc. And it's like there's a certain point where I have to shut myself down in terms of business hours. And yes, there's things that I don't accomplish. Sometimes there's people that fall through the cracks, because when you're marketing yourself, sometimes you have more leads than time. Not a real bad situation to be in, but you've got to know when you've got to know when it's time to stop. And that's where those hours are that great indicator of that. Those are the boundaries that you set up for yourself. I think back to when my son was younger. He's 11 now, but when he was younger, we were really strict on his nap times. When he was younger, he was napping like 3 times during the day, and the times with which he went down, and the times with which he woke up, and the times which we nursed him, etc. I didn't nurse him, but you know what I mean. And the point is that we were really strict on those times. And now what happened is not only was he dependent on those times, meaning he thrived off of those times and that discipline of that routine, but also we did as entrepreneurs. So I knew that from this time to this time, he's going to be sleeping. And whether he was sleeping or rustling around in bed or crying, whatever, like that's the time that he stayed in his bed, right, in his crib, etc. And it's like those are the times we could plan around those times, and we knew what we could schedule, what we couldn't schedule based on those things. And it's like, I noticed like, well, as we get older, it was like, hopefully we had that routine, and as we get older into teenage years, like our parents, depending on how our parents are, right, they set boundaries for us of things we maybe can or can't do, and curfews of when we need to be home, etc. But then at some point, we go to college, etc. and beyond, it's like, all of a sudden we don't have a bedtime anymore. All of a sudden, we don't have to, it doesn't matter when we do this or do that, or when we eat, etc. We don't have time to, sit down and eat or have a breakfast, right? But those things fall away, and then what happens is we start to fall apart because we don't have those boundaries, we don't have that discipline of that routine, and that's what we thrive off of as humans. So I pull that full circle back to what we're doing here is that's kind of the concept of where I'm promoting and where I'm going in terms of with your business. And so then no matter what you have going on in your business, when those boundaries are there, you've got to put them down. And so what you've got to say is there's always going to be more stuff you can do. That's a good thing, right? So now we've just got to know within the time that we have, let's say, for our business, and being today, for example, what are the things that I need to accomplish today that by the time my office hours are over, for example, they need to get done. In other words, they can't wait till tomorrow. Yes, I could do more, but what are the things I need to accomplish today so that I can feel accomplished, and then also that need to get done. And those are the questions you need to be able to answer yourself. So this way you can feel good about it and then not feel behind. Those are the biggest things, and that's called prioritizing, right? So these are all fundamental things, but there's always going to be those items that are there, but which ones are the priority for today? And then if the other pieces or the other items that you have to do, are left outstanding, it's find a home for them, find a space for those. So some of the things I do in my business, especially when it comes to marketing time, and this leads into a question that someone said earlier when we opened up the call in terms of marketing time. That's one of the biggest activities we need to have a consistent routine on, right? We need to be consistent with. In other words, that means we need to have that discipline of putting that in our schedule and having that there. And so it's just like blocking off a client. Like I have a Tuesday 12 o'clock call. You're all here right now, right? So just like you wanted to get on this call today, maybe you blocked this off, right? If you wanted to get on it. Just like if after this call you had a client, you block that time off for your client. What I'd suggest you do is when you look in your office hours, now you look at the different types of activities you have there. In another call, I talked about like our 4 different types of time that we have, or activities in our business. And I kind of categorize them as, 1 being our marketing time, 2 being follow-up time, 3 being client time, and 4 being administrative time. So those first 2 activities of marketing and follow-up, those are the most important. And I even rank them above client time because it's like, well, we don't really have to prioritize client time because we don't blow off our clients, right? Like we schedule our clients and you keep your client time. So that's fine. That's in our schedule. But the other times, like our marketing and follow-up time, it's like schedule those times. When are you going to market? When are you going to follow up? So that's the only way I can keep up with my follow-up and the marketing that I do is I have that time set aside each and every day. And I look at where my clients are and I block that time off. And if I'm going to schedule a client, I can move my marketing time. I can move that to accommodate a client, but I got to make sure if I'm going to move it, it finds a home. It has to find a home. I can't move it out. I can't get it out of there. And there are a lot of other things that would fall under the category of administration time. Like for instance, like I know, like I have my social media links on my website. A couple of them don't work, or I have to change that, or there's a few images that are down, etc. And I could even sending an email to my web person to say, hey, can you do this for me? But those are some things that I just haven't done yet. But it's okay. It doesn't matter because that's not important stuff. Like some people prioritize some of that stuff and make that the most important stuff. But it's like, if you don't have your marketing activities done yet or your follow-up activities done yet, then those become the priority. And if those other things aren't done yet, maybe you don't even have a website up yet. Don't worry about it. That's not important. What's important is you sharing your message, getting out there, interacting, and following up with those people. Whether you have a website or not is not going to bear on or to, deny them on whether they're going to hire you or not, right? It's those activities, recognizing the importance of those. So having those in your calendar and that commitment to that is so vital. One of the things I'll give you in terms of a strategy for when I talk about marketing activities and follow-up activities, especially our marketing activities, because those are the activities that as we get busier and busier, meaning let's say we get more and more clients, we got more and more events going on, so we're preparing for those and following up for those. Our marketing activities are the activities that can tend to fall off because we get busier and our schedule takes up more time with clients. So one of the things that I do, and you know about it because you're here right now or you're listening to it, is my live Tuesday calls. I'll say it like this, is from a larger perspective, we've got to set up some accountability for our marketing activities. And what I mean by accountability is well, who and or what is going to hold you accountable for doing them? And so, yeah, it could be a friend. Yes, it could be a partner or a coach that you work with, etc. But what I mean, that's an avenue. But one vehicle that I use is my weekly live calls. So I like to call it my weekly live event. And I do this with my one-on-one mentoring clients. And oftentimes, depending on the model that I help them structure for their business, one of the things we set up for them or help them set up is a weekly live event. And it could, like mine, I do my call, but there's a lot of other mediums, Facebook Lives, podcasts, webinars. There's a bunch of different things you could do. You don't do all of them, you pick one of them. But having that weekly live event is vital because not only does it allow you to get your message out on a consistent basis, right? So I've got my live Tuesday call. So I get to email my email community on Mondays. I get to set up my events for these calls in my Facebook group and my Facebook page on Mondays. On Tuesdays, I get to actually do the call, interact with some people, get into the Facebook group and say, hey, thanks for calling in, create some activity. And at a minimum, Friday, I get to send another email out to my community and then, hey, let them know the call recording's there. And that drives people to my website and educates them, all while building value for what I do in terms of my mentoring, so forth and so on. But what that whole system does is when someone comes into my system, what it does is they start to very quickly learn, like, oh, this dude does a live Tuesday call. As you're listening to this, right? I mean, each of you have been here for a certain amount of time and have been, if you will, a member of my audience or a raving fan, whoever you are, right? But either way, whether you're on my email list and or in my Facebook group, you start to very quickly get a feel for, oh, he's doing a live Tuesday call, because you see that repetitively over and over again. That's part of my routine, if you will, right? That's it's in my schedule. So it's like, for the rest of my Tuesdays, for the rest of the year, guess what I do at 12 to 1, right? My live Tuesday call. Like it's just there. Nothing else interrupts that, right? I mean, if it's like a couple weeks ago was the 4th of July, all right, well, it was a holiday, so I didn't do the call, all right? But other than that, it's just like I'm there. That's it. And so that's my routine for that. And what that does is I've got that routine. What holds me accountable for that is simply my audience, because it's what I do. So now I do it so much, and there's enough people in there that they expect it. And if I all of a sudden just started canceling it, or I'm not going to do it this week, or you know what, I got a dentist appointment this week, or I'm just not feeling like doing it this week, or I'm going to take another vacation this week, right? What happens is I become very inconsistent, and me knowing myself as a person, and this is, I feel like, not myself, but as people in general, is we're not naturally disciplined, right? I don't believe as humans we're naturally disciplined, meaning if we were naturally disciplined, it'd be easy to just stay in great shape and eat really great food and work out all the time and do our business and just stay on a routine because we're extremely disciplined. I think as humans we're inherently just, I wouldn't say inherently lazy, I don't think that's the right word, but it's easier to not do something than to do something, right? It's much easier to eat poorly than to eat, well, right? It's easier not to do those things, right? It's easier to be angry than it is to be positive and happy. Depending on the situation, it's just easier. It's easier for it to be dark than it is for it to be light. Because how do you get light in a room? You need energy. You need to turn on a switch, and the energy provides that light. And when that energy goes away, darkness, it's right there waiting to come back in. So in other words, that's just the best parallel I can give you is it's not easy for us and not inherently natural for us to be disciplined. You've probably been in those situations. So we require that accountability. So what I like to say is however you get that accountability, one avenue that I like to show and I like to model is using my audience to create that, right? Having an expectation, and then it just becomes an expectation. So that's one way you can revolve that around your marketing activities. And for me, here's the good thing is no matter what I do or don't do during my week, whether I'm working a lot, playing a lot, taking time off, etc., the one thing I know I have to do is my live Tuesday call. And in order to do my live Tuesday call, there's some peripheral things around it to set it up and to communicate it and then to record it and then to put it in my university, right? And create an awareness of that. And it's the stuff I do on Facebook in my group on my page. This is stuff I do on my email, right? And those in and of itself, it's my built-in marketing system. So if I do nothing else to market my business, and there are many weeks where that's all I do to market my business, that's enough, because that's going to start being, that consistency is over time. I do it 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and now 75 weeks or whatever we're on later, here we are, right? And that builds up over time. Then, of course, if there's other activities you can do around marketing, like I run paid Facebook ads and things like that also generates, leads as well. And then that goes into my follow-up time. But I wanted to show you, in terms of a system, in terms of accountability for those things, those things are the most important. And sometimes when you're starting off your business, it's like, oh, what do I do? where do I start? What do I do for marketing activities? And a lot of the times we're not consistent on these things because number one is we don't know what to do. But then again, even if we did know what to do, we're not putting them into a schedule and having it become a routine. So the great value of what I'm talking about with my weekly live event, etc., is I know what's required of me, and here's more important, I know when it's required of me, meaning when do I do my call? Well, 12 to 1 on Tuesdays, right? When do I send out my email? Well, I do one on Monday, I do one on Tuesday to remind them, and I do one on Friday to tell them about the call recording. When do I set up my live events? In my Facebook stuff. Okay, on Monday. See, it gives me, so it doesn't matter when I do it on Monday, right? It doesn't matter when I do it on Friday and on Tuesday, etc., but I know they've got to get done, right? So yesterday I could get them done earlier because I didn't have a lot of clients, so I can get it done. I got it done by, I think, by 2 o'clock in the afternoon or maybe even earlier. Most days I got a bunch of clients going on, etc., and then it's at the end of my day, it's like, all right, well, before I leave my office, I've got to do this. And so it's 6, 7 o'clock at night before I leave my office, but I know I can't leave my office till I do that. I'm taking this Friday off. I'm going up to Maine. Guess what? I've got to get my email done. I've got to get everything ready in my university and get it ready to go out on Friday so that on Friday, when I leave, that's going to go out, and it's going to go out to my database, and it's good to go, right? And I know on Friday I'll have my pre-done posts, so I can just copy and paste it, put it in my group, that's the one thing I can do on Friday, and that doesn't take long to do. So, and that is a routine, and I'm disciplined for that. And what happens is I just follow that routine over time, and that follows, next thing you know, I'm posting call number 75, so forth and so on. And now we are where we are. So hopefully you can start to see where, that's maybe, if you will, a strategy for those marketing activities. And again, a lot of people think like, oh, I've got to do a lot of things. And just find one thing that you can do repeatedly week after week that becomes a part of your system and a part of what you do, and find it in a way or create it in a way that leverages maybe what you do best. So as an example, like for me, I did a live Tuesday call because I can get on this call with a topic and I can go and I can talk. In my ADD mind, I can formulate stuff and I can pull something together. I've done it enough. I've done enough seminars where I can pull it together and feel like I can deliver a strong message with some good value in that amount of time. I have a format that I follow, interacting with the people, welcoming them. Let's talk about the topic. Let me talk for 30, 35 minutes or so, and then let's open up the call, right? So I follow that routine, and that works for me. It doesn't stress me out because I'm not there, oh my God, I got to prepare for this call, and the whole morning I'm wigging out, and the night before. I'm great with that, right? So if something like for you, if that stressed you out, that wouldn't be a good avenue because that's going to consume you week after week, right? So, but if you're a great writer, maybe you're doing something in the written format from a marketing standpoint, right? So you're doing articles and you're writing those on a consistent basis. And maybe for that is you can write articles. Maybe from those articles, you can create a podcast that you do every week. And so now you're leveraging or you're what's the word I'm looking for? You're repurposing your content, right? So let's say you're writing one big article, let's say on Monday or on Sunday, for instance, and you're going to break those up. And let's say you're using any platform, a social media platform, and even your email or a blog, right? You're breaking those up into that one article into 5 different articles or 5 different parts. So you're going to post those each and every day on your social platform or your platform's example. And then on your Tuesday, you do, let's say, a podcast. And you take that article or a portion of the article and maybe you read it. But you're not reading it like, oh, I'm just reading it like a book type of thing. But you're reading it, it's just like you're broadcasting it. And it's a topic, right? And so that becomes your weekly live event. But you're repurposing it. And you're not doing it live in the sense like me, like I'm not sitting here with notes right now, right? I had a few bullet points in mind. I listened to some of the things and I just go from there because that's how I roll. That's how I operate, right? But if you're a great writer, you're leveraging that. But then you can have the weekly live event using that as a strategy. And we can create a structure around that. That's what I do with my mentoring clients is we kind of figure out what works best for them and create a structure and a system around it. But if you notice though, you've got to create a structure around it. You've got to create a system around it with a schedule to put in those pieces. And what that does is it takes a lot of the pressure off of you because you know what needs to get done and when it needs to get done as well. Those are the 2 important components of that. So it's having that routine, but it's also it's leveraging it in a way where you feel comfortable, and it's leveraging skills, if you will, like I said, writing and or speaking, etc. That that work for you. Even send things like a Facebook Live, right? Maybe that works for you, but like you're scared as heck to be on camera, right? So it's like, well, maybe that's not the best thing for you. But there's a lot of different options for it all. So with that being said, committing to a routine, having those business hours, having that, the exercise hours, the so forth and so on, so you're a little bit more scheduled, and lastly, kind of pulling it all together, is just going back to being your best, but why you're doing what you're doing. I'm a big advocate of understanding your why. Why are you doing your business? Why are you doing your coaching business? And wherever you get off, and we're going to get off, right? There's no doubt we're going to get off. But it's always going back to that why. If you go to like my about page or for my website, sellingcoaching.com, the first thing I lead with is my video and, why I do selling coaching. It's a bigger piece. And it's not even so much why I do selling coaching, but it's like why I do coaching. And my why is to be a part of people's successes. And I looked at it from whether I've been in stuff I've done in the fitness industry or what I'm doing in coaching in the past or what I'm doing in coaches now as I help coaches transition to a full-time business. So I love being a part of people's successes. And what I know is that in order to be a part of people's successes and actually coach with them and work with them and mentor them now is I've got to create that schedule and that disciplined routine around those marketing activities. And that leads back to my whole thing around, yes, I help coaches transition to a full-time business, but the name of my company is Selling Coaching, right? It's that selling skill set. And that's the skill set that I want you to master and hone. And that's obviously what I teach and relate everything to. So no wonder I'm pulling this all together and relating it back to that skill set. And it's beginning to master that craft. It's mastering that skill set. So with whatever we're doing, when we get down into that routine of that schedule, and recognizing that with these marketing activities, those are the hardest things for us typically coming into entrepreneurship in order for us to do, is speaking our message and getting out there on a consistent basis. And that's why I recommend having something like a weekly live event or in having that hold you accountable through your audience or other strategies. You can leverage accountability in so many different ways. I've done it with clients before where you leverage something that you value, meaning there was this one realtor I worked with years ago, and she was always late. And one of the things is she's like, I just want to be on time. I want to be on time. But you know what? She was never on time. It was just like part of her thing, part of her mojo, but she didn't want to do it. But then through our discussions, we created something called her on-time guarantee. And her on-time guarantee, that meant she had literally a contract that she would sign with a new client, was that whenever they were meeting, anywhere for that matter, that she would show up plus or minus 5 minutes of the given time. And this is actually before even cell phones were as popular as they are now, smartphones. So that's a pretty standard time. But either from a watch, that's why there was that plus or minus 5 minutes, just to account for any deviance in time. And or she would give the client $500, and like that was her thing. No questions asked. There could be traffic. There could be, anything. She could get a flat tire. It was just her promise. And after that, it was just like she leveraged that piece. And a couple times she had to do that, and she gave the client the $500. And it was such a big thing for her that it completely changed how the way she did business. But it was something that she wanted, and she just didn't have the discipline, and therefore she didn't have the consistency with it. So she created some leverage, and she used something she valued. She valued her word, and then she also leveraged money as well. So that's just a quick example. I know when I wrote my book, as an example, I leveraged a lot of different things. My reputation with my mentor coach at the time. I leveraged it by letting everyone know that I was writing a book and when I would have it in my hands. So that was a big leverage. But the other piece that I leveraged as well is with the publisher, there was a $10,000 refundable deposit. And I had them change the contract to make it non-refundable. So basically, if I decided, I can't write this book or, whatever, I was going to lose 10 grand. And I was not willing to lose 10 grand just because I didn't feel like writing, or I just had, some bad limiting beliefs that I couldn't write a book, etc. Right? So those are all the things that I leveraged to make sure that I got my book done, and it kept me focused. even when I was the most unfocused, right? So it doesn't matter, I like to say it like this, it doesn't matter how you do it or how it gets done, as long as it's legal, ethical, moral, who cares what you have to do? If you can create it that way, do it. So create that leverage, create that accountability for those important activities, wrap it up with that schedule, and start to see what you can do with that.